Welcome, this is Carrie Schell from On Point Quilter. In today's tutorial, I am playing with the new Dear Jane add-on software available for EQ8. I was particularly intrigued by the progress report and the ability to use photographs of our own blocks as we track progress. And so I'll be sharing my experience with you in this tutorial. On the home screen, select Open an Existing Project. When downloading the Dear Jane software, there were a number of master templates included, and I want to select one of them. And so they are under My EQ8 Projects, and I'm going to select DJ2 Progress Chart Master and select OK. Let's save this with a new name so that it now is specific to my project. So select File, Save As. And let's navigate to my EQ8 projects. And I'm going to label this DJ 2.25 Progress Report. And select Save. Now let's view the project sketchbook and go to the Quilts tab. Select the quilt and select Edit. For our progress report, we can take pictures of each of the blocks as we make them and set them in this particular quilt in the appropriate spot. Since I'm working on a half-size Dear Jane, I'm going to modify the dimensions to match the size of blocks that I am creating. So I'll go to the Layout tab. Don't need to change the number of blocks, but for the finished size of the blocks, I'm going to change it to 2.25 by 2.25. I'm also going to half the sashing, and so I'm going to make that 0.25. Then in the Border tab, half the size of the first border, so that should be 0.125. And then I will go to Border 2 and change that to 4 inches. Select the Design tab and note that it looks the same, it's just the size is half size. So I will select Add to Project Sketchbook. Select the Image Work Table and select Import Image. So now I will navigate to the photographs that I have taken of all of my smaller Dear Jane blocks. And I put them under My EQ8 Images, Dear Jane 2.25 for my folder. So I'll select my first photographed block, which is A1, and select Open. Select Crop. And we want to not only crop the background, but we want to crop off the 1/4 inch seam allowance on all 4 sides. Drag the nodes in the dotted box around the image to identify the crop space. Then select Apply Crop. Although it's not necessary to resize, this is a really big picture. So I will select Scale Fabric. Scroll down, and under the Measured Fabric Distance, I'm going to just change it to the size of the block, which is 2.25, and select Apply. Select Add to Project Sketchbook. Then select Import Image, and let's select A2 and select Open. Select Crop, move the dotted lines to eliminate both the background and the seam allowance. Select Apply Crop. Select Scale Fabric, and then notice that it stays at the 2.25, so I can just select Apply and Add to Sketchbook. Now let's address what to do when the picture is slightly skewed. So I'm going to do an Import Image, and I'm going to select A4 and select Open. Since the picture is a little bit skewed, we're going to start by straightening the picture. Select Rotate followed by Straighten. Drag the crosshairs across the block over a portion that should be perfectly horizontal. Then select Apply Straighten. And I will do a Fit to Work table, and now select Crop and adjust the dotted lines to eliminate the background and the 1/4 inch seam allowance. And select Apply Crop and Add to Sketchbook. Next, let's work on a triangle block. Select Import Image, and let's select TR1 and select Open. Select Crop. Well, we can adjust for the background on the top and the bottom and the seam allowances. We will have some extra background for the setting triangles. And then I will select Apply Crop. And for this one, I can also do a scale fabric. And under Measured Fabric Distance, I will put the finished width of my triangle blocks, which is 2.5, and then select Apply. Then select Add to Project Sketchbook. Now let's go to the Quilt work table and select Photo Tools and Set Photo. And I'm going to go to the end where there are my blocks that I just added, and I'm going to select the A1 block and click on the A1 space, and the A2 block and click on the A2 space, TR1 block and click on the TR1 space. So now when I view my close-up, I can see my blocks in their planned spaces. I decided to make one additional modification, and that was to add the setting triangles that go between each of those pieced triangles in the Dear Jane quilt. Select the block work table and select New Block Applique Motif. In the Precision toolbar, change the block width to 2.5 and the height to 4. Set the snaps at 12 by 12, and under snapping options, turn on Snap to Grid, Snap to Node, and Auto Join Segment when drawing, and then also have the Hide Show Autofill on closed patches turned on. Select the Draw tool followed by the line. Draw a line from the lower left corner to the midpoint at the top of the block, and then to the lower right corner, and then go back to the starting point, which should fill in the patch. Select the Color tab and color the patch. Now there are no fabrics in this particular project, so I will just use a color and possibly replace with fabrics at a later point. And select Add to Sketchbook. Now back on the quilt work table, I'm going to go to Layer 2, go to Block Tools, and select Set Block, and go to the Motifs tab, and drag this on the quilt. Now select the Adjust tool, and I'm going to do a rotate 2 times, and I can go ahead and place this where those setting triangles are going to be. So that's going to overlap the block that is there. Now I did find that I needed to snap to the 1/8 inch, and I'm going to have Snap Block Position to Grid turned on. And so even as I add like the TR2 block, this particular block is going to lay on top of that. So I will end up with a very good visual of how my quilt is developing. Here is the progress report updated with all of my completed blocks and triangles. For additional tips and techniques, please subscribe to my weekly newsletter at www.onpointquilter.com.